Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another great episode, or as we like to say here at How to Think, interesting episode this evening. So tonight on the show, I'm going to change my order up. We have our special guest, Mr. Magnus Olson. We have our resident physio, Mr. Robert Haugh. And we have our resident guru of all things business, Mr. Serge Romano. All right, and I want to give myself an introduction because my mum always told me if you've got nothing nice to say. So, but without further ado, I told you guys all last week that we had a big doozy question tonight, and I think we do. So, what has been the biggest lesson, gentlemen, you've learned from your career? Now, I'm not going to throw anyone under the bus tonight. Who would like to lead us off tonight? Who's feeling brave?
Yeah, go on. I'll do it. All right.
Love it, Rob. Here we go. I'm excited.
There's a lot of lessons. That's first of all. So picking one is very difficult. I think one of the biggest lessons is understanding the difference between memorization and proper learning. So I guess when I go through it for myself as a physiotherapist, I continually have to keep up to date with things from a physiotherapy, rehab, anatomy standpoint, all those things. I always have to keep up to date with the recent research that's coming out, and I have to know it because things are changing all the time in that industry. From just a business sense as well, like I'm a little bit more involved in the business and management side of things, and that's not something that's a whole new thing. I didn't go to uni for that. You don't really learn about it much in school. That's something that as I've gone through my 6 years, I've had to continue to learn about. But what I found is that especially in that part where I've really had to self-learn, I've really had to go out and seek that information. I have a wonderful mentor, luckily at Inspire Health Services, who does teach these things and provides those lessons. And this is one of the things that he's actually been teaching me now, is actually trying to think for myself and actually trying to learn for myself. It sounds easy, right? It sounds like you listen to something and you take that on, but it's actually harder than you think. And I find that a lot of the ways in which I've learned in the past comes back to memorization. If I take anatomy, for instance, you pretty much just have to memorize. Like you know where things are. If you just repetition over time, you can pick up on things. You can memorize it. You can know it. But there's a lot of things you can't do that with. There's a lot of nuances, especially with management side of things, business side of things, that you can't do that with. And you have to properly sit down and process it and learn the ins and outs of those things. And you have to be able to speak it. You have to be able to write it. And a lot of those times, you can't actually say that you've learned something or know something until you can then teach it yourself and teach it effectively. And the only way in which you'll know that you've done that is if the student or the person you're teaching can tell it back to you and learn it themselves. So I think that one of the biggest things for me, especially right now and what I'm doing, is actually trying to learn what proper learning actually is, and how to go about that and how to process that.
That was a tremendous answer. But Rob, as I always say, you're the brainiac in the group. So well done, Rob. Look, sure. But the jokes aside, guys, that's as I've mentioned on the show before, Rob was someone that was very special to me and got me back from my elbow surgery, helped me through tremendous times. It's not a coincidence that he takes learning so seriously, and as such, down there at the Inspire Health team, he's one of the stars, as there are many there. But Rob, well said, and I think a lot of people will take a lot out of that response. So, guys, if you did listen to that response, play it back. There was a lot there. Rob, thank you so much for sharing. Magnus, I am very, very much intrigued in your answer, because when I was a guest on your podcast, this was something that you seemed extremely passionate about lessons and about improving and about takeaways. And I think knowing you the way I do, mate, especially even something I saw you posted on social media today about your ice hockey involvement, I was, it's very powerful, mate, to see how you hold yourself. So very intrigued in your response on this one.
Buddy, well, it's probably twofold for me, that I've again just learned so much, and every day you learn new lessons. But probably the two big ones for me has been patience over the last 5 years and also playing the long game. I think when I was a bit younger, you tend to want everything and you want it now, and just being able to be patient and just do the hard work and play that long game. And that's been the two biggest ones for me.
Fantastic. And when you say play the long game, can you give us a little bit more? So I know what you mean by that because I know how much you fit into that day of yours, but maybe you could be a little bit less humble and tell the audience out there what Magnus fits into a day, because it is seriously impressive.
Yeah, no, well, I do get up early and try and squeeze as much into a day as I can, but more just not looking at instant gratification, just to be whatever it is that you're doing, being able to do that consistently, being able to do it long term, and just looking towards the future for that end result, that end goal, and not trying to expect everything to happen in 5 minutes. And unfortunately, I think that's a bit of the world we live in at the moment. Everybody wants everything. They want it now. And, you know, for example, if you want to build a nice, healthy physique, well, that's not going to happen overnight. And you've got to put things into play that you can manage to do day in and day out for the rest of your life, and not just have a focus on 12 weeks.
Yeah, well said, Magnus. And, I'm really, for those who are interested in checking out M26 or any other great stuff Magnus is doing, check out the handles below. But honestly, guys, you couldn't meet someone more appropriate for lives their message every day. On to Mr. Romano. So what have you got for us this evening? I'm intrigued. This could be, you could take us anywhere on this tour.
Well, okay, I'll see where I can take you. No, my lesson, there's one, but there's three that kind of dovetail into each other. So one of the very first mentors, and to this day, this mentor still exists for me. I was working with him and in part of another organization. And it'd be fair to say that I made a mistake, and I then tried to cover the mistake. I'm talking very early in my working life, yeah. And it'd be fair to say that the mistake was obviously uncovered, and I then had to, he called me into the office, and he said, Serge, sit down. I said, and I obviously I knew what was coming, and he said, I want you to make as many mistakes as you like. He said, but never make the same one twice, because that just means you're not learning, or you don't want to learn, or heaven forbid, there may not be the capacity to. But let's leave that one out. But if you're learning and you want to learn, you kind of don't make the same mistake twice. And then tongue in cheek after that, in a very Italian mafia kind of accent, said, or otherwise I'll kill you. So it was very funny at the time for him. And then we had a bit of a laugh, and we moved on. But that, the whole, and everyone talks about making mistakes, right? It's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to make mistakes. Yeah, but you can't continuously make the same one, right? So that's the first lesson. And then the second lesson that kind of dovetails into that is that bad news doesn't get better with time. So the sooner you communicate things that haven't gone well, or that you need help with, or that something needs to change, or that something needs to be different, do it quickly. Don't wait. Don't think that things are going to get better because you're not saying anything, or you're hoping that things change. It doesn't happen that way. So that's the second part. And the third part, which kind of ties it all in, and I talk about this often in my, in the whole leverage sales coaching arena when I talk to salespeople and sales management, and that is proactive communication. Okay, be on the front foot. Let people know and understand what it is that you're trying to achieve, what you're trying to help them with, what you're trying to do, how you can, ask questions if you don't understand things. But it's incumbent on you to be proactive about it. Where humanly possible, be proactive with your communication. So if you're if you're working for somebody and you don't like what's going on, be proactive with that communication. If you're a manager and you're looking at helping somebody, improving somebody, assisting somebody, potentially telling somebody that they're not doing things the right, don't wait for things to happen. Do it proactively. So they kind of, in a dovetail kind of fashion, that is for me the biggest lessons I've learned from a business perspective, literally from day dot.
So it's a very thoughtful answer, mate. Thank you so much for sharing those vulnerabilities and those experiences. I think that the audience will take a lot out of that. Guys, if you want to email Serge through about any follow-up questions regarding that, definitely do, because that was a very, very in-depth response. All right, so for myself, I think it's a bit of a cliche, but I'm going to use it because it's very powerful. And Serge, you're aware of how much I've learned this in the last kind of 12 to 18 months. If you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. All right. In other words, when you're around brilliant people, that is the best place you can be. If you are learning every day, you are getting better every day. If someone you haven't seen runs into you in 10 years time from where you were, they should barely recognize you. You should be that different. If you are taking on the mindset, and Magnus, I'm going to coin something from your brand here, continuous improvement, and you're focusing on, being a better version of yourself every day. But like Serge, you teach us as well in our discussions that you and I have had off camera many times. If you're focusing on being around the right people, you will naturally evolve because you'll have no choice. You'll put yourself in a position where you'll have to become more efficient, more empathetic, okay, or charismatic even in some cases. I think that it just gives us an ability to really reflect on who we are and where we want to be. And I want to tune in for everyone's benefit for everything Serge, some things Serge touched on. If you don't make mistakes, you are not getting better. But again, if you make the same ones, it shows a lack of ability to adhere to improvement. So for those people who have tuned in tonight, the name of the podcast is How to Think. And I think everyone's in the podcast tonight, all of us on the show have really delved into how to think to become a better version of yourself for today and for your family tomorrow. So please follow up with questions. The boys dug deep tonight. So definitely follow up, get in touch. And guys, from all of us here at How to Think, we'll see you next week.